After 9 years together, I never thought I'd need a private investigator to reveal the truth about my marriage. But watching that footage broke me. A single, damning night of betrayal shattered my life and left me with no choice but to start over. My wife and I celebrated our 6th wedding anniversary recently, and together we are blessed with 2 wonderful boys. These amazing kids are from my wife's previous relationship, and over the years we have built a strong bond as a family. Our weekends are filled with joy as we embark on various adventures with the boys, such as going to the movies and enjoying dinners together. Being their stepfather has brought me immense happiness, and we always find ways to have a fantastic time as a loving and harmonious family. Around a year ago, our relationship hit a rough patch when my wife went out for a girls' night out with her friends. Upon her return, I could sense that something was amiss. Concerned, I asked her what was bothering her, but she brushed it off, attributing her mood to tiredness from the previous night's outing. Despite my intuition suggesting otherwise, I respected her space and chose not to press further at that moment, accepting her explanation about being tired. I decided not to pursue the matter further. However, over the next few days I couldn't help but notice that she was spending an unusual amount of time on her phone, even during dinner. Concerned, I gently inquired why she was texting so frequently. She revealed that she was actively engaged in a group chat with her girlfriends, discussing the recent girls' night out they had and planning another one. Though her response seemed innocent enough, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something more might be going on. At the time, I didn't pay much attention to her frequent texting with her girlfriends, as it wasn't an unusual behavior. In hindsight, I now understand that she might have been coordinating something with them that she preferred to keep private for me, given her demanding job as a consultant for a large firm. I didn't mind her occasional nights out with friends as a means to de-stress and unwind. It seemed like a natural way for her to relax, and I trusted her judgment in maintaining a healthy work-life balance. Presently, my wife is excitedly discussing another upcoming girls' night out, marking the second one in less than 3 weeks. While I understand the need for her to unwind and enjoy time with her friends, there's a lingering concern among the group she hangs out with. 4 of them are single, making her the only married member. This situation worries me because she seems to be the one with the most to lose in comparison to her single friends. The other women in her circle are single, leading me to feel uneasy about the potential risks involved. I want to maintain a healthy level of trust and respect in our relationship, and I don't wish to be controlling or overly restrictive. The second girls' night out came and went, and afterward, I gently expressed my concerns to her. I emphasized the importance of being cautious and ensuring that her single friends wouldn't inadvertently influence her choices regarding our marriage. Open communication and understanding are crucial, and I want to support her while also safeguarding the commitment we share. Her reaction to my concerns was a puzzled look, but she remained silent in search of guidance. I decided to drop by my parents' house after work. I shared my frustration with my wife's frequent girls' night out gatherings and discussed my worries with my mom. I explained that all the women she hangs out with are single, and it concerns me because they don't have the same commitments or responsibilities to consider as my wife does. My mom listened to my concerns and responded by saying, "I don't see anything wrong with the girls' night out in general, but I do understand your worry about her being the only married woman among a group of single friends." My dad added his perspective, saying, "If I were in your shoes, I would assert myself and let her know that this should be limited." Both of my parents highlighted the importance of addressing the situation openly and honestly with my wife. While respecting her need for social outings, they advised me to communicate my feelings and boundaries effectively to ensure we find a solution that works for both of us. He further emphasized that her continuous partying without you is a significant issue of concern. Then my mom intervened once more, explaining that she had only participated in 3 girls' night out events in the entire 40 years of their marriage. She emphasized that all her girlfriends were married too and they always made sure to be back home by 11 p.m. after contemplating their words. On my way back home, I came to the conclusion that they were right. It was crucial to address this matter promptly before it escalated upon reaching home. I discussed the issue with my wife, but she became upset, accusing me of being controlling and lacking trust in her. I attempted to clarify that my intentions were not about controlling her. Rather, my concern was rooted in love and wanting her safety. Despite my efforts to explain, she refused to listen and went to bed upset. The following day, she left for her girls' night out without even returning home after work. To my surprise, this was already the 3rd such event and I hadn't even been aware of it. My wife arrived home well past 2 in the morning, but I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I waited silently, pretending to be asleep when she entered the bedroom. As I lay there, I realized that I needed to understand what was driving her, to prioritize her outings with friends over spending time with her family. I resolved to have a sincere conversation with her to address the situation and find out why she was inclined to leave her family and go party with her girlfriends before heading to work the following day. I reached out to a friend of mine and inquired if he still had the contact details of the private investigator he had hired for his company previously to provide some context. My friend had enlisted the services of the investigator when one of his employees attempted to claim workman's compensation for an on-the-job accident. After the accident, the employee started complaining that he couldn't come to work, prompting my friend to take quick action and hire a private investigator. As it turned out, the employee's injury claims were completely false. The investigator discovered that he had been playing golf and participating in a flag football league during the supposed recovery period. Naturally, with this evidence, the employee had no choice but to withdraw his workman's compensation claim. After receiving the contact number of the private investigator my friend had previously hired, he asked if everything was all right. In response, I expressed my uncertainty and shared my suspicions about my wife's recent behavior. I mentioned that she had been frequently attending these girls' night out parties, and I had concerns that she might be engaged in activities she shouldn't be. My friend inquired about the reasons behind my suspicion of my wife's fidelity. I proceeded to explain that my concerns arose from 3 recent incidents when she went out and returned home after midnight smelling of alcohol. Moreover, when I confronted her about it, she reacted with anger and defensiveness, which added to my worries. In response, my friend remarked, "Well, it seems like you have valid reasons for concern." Following that conversation, I took action and called the private investigator, arranging a meeting with him after work. During the meeting, the investigator asked me about my requirements, and I requested that he keep an eye on my wife during her girls' night out events to find out what she was up to. Upon meeting the private investigator, he informed me of his hourly fee, which was $1 without any concern for the cost. I was determined to discover the truth about my wife's activities. I provided the investigator with a photograph of my wife, along with details about her car, workplace, and work hours. He assured me that he would commence the surveillance the following day. During those 3 days, I anxiously waited for the private investigator's call, eager to find out what my wife was up to. Finally, he contacted me and arranged a meeting after my work hours. When we met, he presented me with some footage to reveal what he had discovered. The footage showed my wife leaving her workplace wearing different clothes than what she had worn when she left for work that day. It became evident that she had changed her attire while at work. The private investigator tracked my wife's movements and found her heading to a bar. Upon entering, he observed her joining a group of women who turned out to be her girlfriends. They spent around 2 hours at the bar before leaving together. The investigator continued to follow them to a nearby house, approximately 15 minutes away from the bar at the house. He noticed a man answering the door, and my wife and her friends went inside with him, clad in black attire. The private investigator explained that it aids him in conducting discreet nighttime surveillance. He approached a window from a slight distance and inside. Witnessing a scene that confirmed my fears inside, he observed the girls dancing closely with a few guys, and unfortunately, my wife was among them. She was in a corner with a man who was behaving inappropriately, squeezing her buttocks while they engaged in a passionate kiss. Upon witnessing the distressing evidence, the private investigator looked at me and stated, "I believe you now have sufficient evidence to take the necessary actions." He handed me a flash drive containing the footage and mentioned that he would retain a copy as a precautionary measure. After the meeting, I returned home feeling overwhelmed with emotion and tears streaming down my face. It was difficult to come to terms with the fact that my wife, whom I had been married to for 9 years, had cheated on me and continued to do so, feeling torn about confronting her directly with the footage. I decided not to show it to her just yet. The following day, I got up early and left for work without uttering a word to my wife as I was on my way to work. She sent me a text questioning why I hadn't spoken to her before leaving. Despite receiving her message, I chose not to respond. At that moment, upon arriving at work, I immediately made calls to several divorce lawyers seeking advice on how to navigate the situation and safeguard my interests. Simultaneously, I began searching for a place to stay as I knew I couldn't continue living in the same house with my wife. The thought of leaving our home was difficult, especially because of my feelings for our boys, but I felt it was the necessary step considering my wife's actions. I felt an overwhelming sense of devastation as my entire world seemed to have been thrown into chaos. I was at a loss for how to make things right again. Divorce appeared to be the only viable solution. There seemed to be no point in attempting to mend our broken marriage. It was evident that she desired the freedom of the single life, and I decided to let her have it. However, I had to approach the situation strategically, ensuring that our boys wouldn't be left alone while their mother enjoyed her girls' night out. Residing in Massachusetts, I knew that divorce in this state was considered a no-fault process, which should make the legal aspect relatively straightforward. However, that evening when I arrived home, my wife and boys were already there. As I entered, my wife greeted me, asking about my day, while the boys happily said, "Hey Dad." The moment was emotionally overwhelming, and I fought back tears, trying to keep myself composed. As the hours passed, everyone began to wind down for the night. After putting the boys to bed, my wife came downstairs and invited me to watch a movie together, but I declined, saying that I wasn't up for it. She accepted my response and said, "Okay, I'm going to bed." Later, once she had settled into bed, I used that time to gather my belongings and prepare to leave. I waited until she had fallen asleep before quietly departing from the house. Having nowhere else to go, I sought refuge at my parents' house, even though it was quite late. My dad was genuinely concerned about my well-being and asked if I was okay. Wanting to share the truth with him, I sat down with him at the dining room table with a heavy heart. I opened up the footage that my private investigator had compiled and showed my dad the evidence. He couldn't believe what he saw, and his disbelief mirrored the pain and shock I had been feeling. As my mom joined us downstairs, I decided to show her the evidence as well. The revelation left both my parents speechless, unable to comprehend the betrayal. I mustered the courage to tell them that I had made up my mind to move out and file for divorce. While they seemed disappointed, they didn't attempt to dissuade me. After all, it was clear that my decision was based on my wife's infidelity, and I had reached the point of no return. That night, I stayed at my parents' house seeking solace in their support. During this difficult time, the following morning, I woke up and decided to send a text to my boss, explaining that I would be coming in late due to personal reasons. My boss was understanding and didn't have any issues with my situation. While dealing with my work matters, I noticed an overwhelming number of text messages from my wife filled with concern about my whereabouts and why I had left the previous night. Despite the flood of messages, I chose not to respond to any of them. Still grappling with my emotions and needing some space to process everything that had happened. Taking decisive action, I sought out a divorce attorney and initiated the legal process based on the grounds of adultery. Simultaneously, I made the difficult decision to move out of the house when I knew my wife wouldn't be home. I returned to leave her a note in the note. I explained that I had filed for divorce, providing her with the necessary information, and informed her that she could reach me at my parents' house if she needed anything during this tumultuous time. When my workday was over, I headed to my parents' house and noticed my wife's car parked in the driveway. Entering the house, I found her sitting at the kitchen table, tears streaming down her face. She asked me the reason behind filing for divorce, and I mustered the courage to show her the footage on my phone as I played the evidence. I calmly explained that I didn't deserve to be treated this way and that the trust between us had been shattered by her actions. After a lengthy and heartfelt conversation, we both came to the mutual understanding that divorce was the best course of action for us. I expressed that I didn't have any desire to keep the house considering it was a rental property, so I suggested that she could have it since she could afford the rent on her own. The divorce hearing proceeded amicably, and the judge granted me a 30-day period to collect the belongings from the house. I chose not to seek alimony from her as I earned more income and child support wasn't necessary since the children were already receiving it from their biological father. Our ages were the same, both 33 and the boys were 7 and 8 years old. It was truly heartbreaking because I had developed a deep love for those boys, treating them as if they were my own. Even though I knew I wasn't their biological father, when my job presented me with an opportunity out of state, I made the decision to accept it as part of starting a new chapter in my life. I changed my phone number, only sharing it with my parents and a select few friends embarking on this fresh journey. I have managed to build a new life for myself. Almost a year has passed, and I am thriving. I've embraced dating again, and emotionally I find myself in a much better place. The decision to move and begin anew has proven to be a positive and transformative experience. My friends have informed me that my ex-wife has been inquiring about me and even attempted to reach out through social media, but I have no interest in reconnecting with her or revisiting the past. I am content with the choice I made to move forward with my life, and I encourage anyone facing a similar situation to do the same. While I still have moments of difficulty, I am learning to cope with it one day at a time. Embracing each day as it comes has been my way of handling the struggles that arise from time to time.